I loved his character so much. I kind of had to force myself to keep reading it. This is one of the creepiest books I have ever read. Hey, I'm Brittany, and I wanted to talk about the books I've read so far this year, which is a total of 6 books, and I will talk about them from my least favorite to my most favorite. First is my least favorite that I've read so far. So number 6 is Before I Let Go. So basically this book is about Yasmin and Josiah. They fall in love, they get married, have kids. Then they go through this traumatic event that they both don't really handle that well, and they get divorced.
I was concerned that people would blame her for the divorce.
And within the book, they are focused on, navigating co-parenting as well as owning a business together. So as far as my thoughts on it, as far as what I did like about it, is I do feel like it was well written for the most part. And then I do feel like the subject matter was pretty good. You don't hear too much about divorces being discussed in novels, so I thought the subject matter was really good. What I didn't really like about it is that I didn't care for the characters. I didn't think that the main characters were really well developed, so that made me not really care about the story. And I also thought that some of the dialogue was a little corny. So overall, I do think that this book was a little overhyped. I didn't really like it that much. I kind of had to force myself to keep reading it because I did want to finish it and kind of give it a chance. But overall, I mean, it wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but out of all the books I've read so far this year, not my favorite. So the 5th book is The 7-Year Slip. And this is about Clementine. She works for a publishing company in New York, and her aunt, who she was very close to, has just passed away. This aunt was a free spirit. She traveled a lot with her aunt when she was younger, and she told her stories that seemed not really too real, but maybe made up. But one of the stories she told her about was her apartment that she lived in, or that she owned, and how this apartment would randomly make her go back in time 7 years. So of course she thought it was a made-up story, but when her aunt died, she did inherit her apartment. So she moved into the apartment, and of course it did make her go back in time 7 years. And of course she met someone in the past, in 7 years in the past. His name is Iwin. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so I apologize. Hopefully that's not your name. I did really like this book. It's a romance. Romance isn't my genre that I normally go for, so that's why it's 5th. But if romance is your favorite genre, then you will really like this, I think. I do think that it was really dialogue heavy in the beginning, but it paid off. Because I'm sure you read books where there's 2 people and just out of nowhere they fall in love or they get together or whatever, and it doesn't make sense because there was no real build up to it. But the dialogue, I was like, oh my god, there's so much dialogue. They're in the apartment, they can't really leave, so they have to talk and interact with each other. So that, even though I was kind of like, oh my god, in the beginning, it did pay off towards the end. So I did really like this. I just kind of had to push through the beginning to get the payoff, basically. All right, this one still have a Target tag on it. 20% off. So the 4th book would be The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is set back in old Hollywood times as far as Evelyn Hugo's story, but in present time she is basically telling her story to Monique, who's a writer. So she chose Monique to tell her story. She's an old Hollywood star. Her life was shrouded in mystery in the past, but in present time she's decided to tell her story. So I did really like this book for the most part. I felt like most of the characters were very, very well developed, especially Evelyn, and then a few of her couple of her friends in the past. They were very well developed, so I love that. What I did not too much care for is that Monique, the writer, who's basically she's telling her story to, she was not well developed. She felt like an afterthought. And then also I feel like a good chunk of the book could have been left out. So that's why I made it like 4th. If I believe, yeah, her name's Monique. She could have been, I wish she would have been more well developed. I felt like the ending would have had more of an impact if she would have been more well developed, Monique. And then if a good chunk of it was left out, was not really necessary, yeah, it would have been better. 3rd, in this book, there's so many videos on YouTube of people making fun of this book.
When you find out why the child is named Crew, you're gonna scream.
Because he works on like the production team.
Which is deserving of it, I'm not gonna lie. But this one is 3rd, and I put this one 3rd even though there are some things in this book that's a little nonsensical. But yeah, as far as I love thrillers, that's my favorite genre. So as far as thrillers go, I thought it was pretty good. And then this is basically about Lowen. She's a writer, a struggling writer, and then she's prompted by a more famous writer to finish up a series of books for her. So she goes to stay at her house, and then, you know, craziness from there. Even though, like I said, there's some nonsensical parts in here, there's also, she is packing on the trauma. Like, she's packing on the trauma. Like, it seems like that is pretty common with her as a writer. It's like not necessary. Like, a lot of it isn't necessary, and it's like, okay. And it's to the point where I'm sure something like it can happen in real life, but it makes it seem not as realistic when she does that. But as far as thrillers, what I like about thrillers, or what I would consider a good thriller, is if it draws me into the story. Like, I'm really engrossed in the story and I'm really trying to figure out what's going on. So to me, so that's why I put this 3rd, because that is what it did. It did what it needed to do for me. All right, so 2nd is 7 Days in June. I really like this book. And this is also more of a romance. There's definitely a lot of drama in here as well, but definitely would label this as a romance. And I feel like this is what I wanted Before I Let Go to be, or what I wanted Before I Let Go to do, because the character development was so good as far as the main characters go. So this is about Eva and Shane. They met when they were teenagers and they really connected really quickly, and then they lose touch, and then as adults they get back in contact with each other. Did I say they were both writers? Yeah, they're both writers. What I really liked about this book is, like I said, the characters are really well developed. Eva, she's struggling with chronic illness, and I've never seen that in a book before, as far as I can think of. I don't think I've ever seen a character in a book deal or struggle with chronic illness. And I do think a lot of authors try to make their characters kind of perfect in a sense, especially in romance, which I think is just super odd because it doesn't allow you to connect with the character as much. But I do like that she did touch on, or she did give this character like a chronic illness, or have her struggling with chronic pain.
Also, she has chronic daily migraines, and so do I.
Because that's something I don't really think about, like going through, you know, my day-to-day life. It's definitely something I take for granted. So reading about that made me more appreciative of my health, and then more empathetic to people who are struggling with chronic pain day in and day out, and they have to live their lives, go to work, take care of their kids, and, you know, still deal with having chronic pain and chronic illness. And then Shane, I loved his character so much. He had so much depth to me. Like, he has this shyness about him, introverted, but he's trying. He feels kind of like a injured bird. I don't know. He just has a lot of depth to him. And it's like people, like his fans, think he's just mysterious, but he's more of just like, kind of more of him not letting people in, being introverted, just not kind of a trauma response, just not wanting to let people in. I think that's what it seems like to me with Shane as to why he's so mysterious. One thing I will say about this book, that it didn't ruin the book for me, but the ending. So there's like some type of mystery going on in the book, and then when you finally find out what it is, it does not make any sense to me personally. It doesn't make logical sense in the real world. It just didn't make sense to me. I wish I could say, should I say? No, I won't. But if you do read this book, there's a mystery, like some type of miscommunication, I would say, that happened. And when it finally gets brought to light, to me, it does not make logical sense as to how it worked out the way it did. So that's the only thing, but did not ruin the book for me. So this is number 2. Drum roll. My favorite book that I read so far this year is None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. So this is a thriller, and so it's about Alex and Josie. They basically on the same day, on their birthday, go to the same restaurant for dinner, and they discover, you know, that they were literally born on the same day. So that's kind of how they connect.
Alex is initially slightly put off by Josie's demeanor. She's a little bit strange, slightly creepy.
And one thing to note about the characters is that one of the women, they're pretty well off, they're living a really nice life, and then the other one, she's more, I wouldn't say poor, but maybe a lower socioeconomic status. And this book, if you like thrillers, you have to read this book. I would say this is one of the creepiest books I have ever read. Like, at the end of it, my jaw was on the floor. Like, I literally, like, while reading the book, I literally just wanted to crawl out of my skin. I wanted to crawl out of my skin and then wash it in bleach. Like, it sounds so creepy, but that's how it made me feel. Like, and then once it made me feel that way, it literally just flipped that on its head, and I was like, what? But then I was like, but did it flip it on its head? You have to read this if you like thrillers and mysteries. It's crazy. So you tell me, give me some book suggestions. What's a good thriller that I have to read? Because it's my favorite genre. So what's a good thriller that I have to read? What's your favorite thriller? What's your favorite genre? Are you a thriller person, romance, fantasy? Yeah, let me know in the comments. But thanks so much for watching. Bye.